welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Today in the Bible Bistro, we're serving up hot and fresh with the screen door open, the windows are open, the fans going. Get yourself something cold or hot to drink. Whatever your choice might be, because you might be in a cold climate, you might be in a hot climate, I don't know where you are. But I'm so glad you're here. I delight in the fact that you let me teach you the Bible, and especially the Psalms. I'm just in love with the Psalms. We're going to read today verse 6, and this is the second curse. So last week, we had the 7 blessings of the man or the woman who's in the way towards the heavenly Jerusalem. You remember all the way back in Psalm 120, we left Meshach and the tents of Kedar, and we began our trek towards the heavenly Jerusalem. And we've been looking in that direction ever since, and now we come to the 10th step. There's only 15 steps in this travelogue. The 10th step is 129, and we find ourselves looking to Zion. We mentioned yesterday, verse 5, those that hate Zion. Well, we don't hate Zion. We're on the way to Zion. But there's a group that does, and they're afflicting us. He calls them plowers. They're plowing our back. Wicked. They're driving the plow. Let them be turned back was the first curse, because they're in the way. So let them be turned back. You remember the story of the parable that Jesus told of the wheat and the tares. The goodman of the house sows wheat in his good grain in his field, and then an enemy comes in at night and he sows tares, and the tares and the wheat grow up together at the direction of the goodman of the house until the harvest. And then in the harvest, the tares are gathered in bundles and burned, and the wheat is gathered in bundles and put in the barn. So that's sort of what we have here. We have them turned back, confounded, and turned back. So this is the first curse. The second curse is in verse 6. Let them be as the grass upon the housetops, which wherewith afore it groweth up, wherewith the mower filleth not his hand, nor he that bindeth sheaves in his bosom. Okay, so we immediately have another analogy here, another similitude, and this similitude is found here in verse 6. Let them be as. That word as keys us into the similitude. We didn't have that in verse 3. We just jumped right into that particular analogy. The plower has plowed my back. Okay, I get that. Well, we're kind of still following that agricultural theme, because now we're talking about grass on the housetops. It grows up, but before it gets grown, something happens to it. It withers. Okay, so we're seeing the grass withering before it grows up. The mower's not able to fill his hand because there's not enough there. And he that binds sheaves can't fill his bosom with this stuff because it's just junk. Again, let me take you back to the parables of Jesus. Remember the very first parable he told about the sower that went forth to sow, and some of the seed fell in the gutter, some of the seed fell along the path, some of the seed fell among thorns. All of that seed didn't produce. It didn't grow up. And so nobody's harvesting it. Some of it died, some of it was burned up, and some of it just didn't make. But then the stuff that fell in the good soil, it bore fruit, 30, 60, 100. Well, here we have that same idea. We have grass on the housetops. Well, you've seen grass grow probably in your gutters on your house. It's not going to do anything because there's no depth of soil for it. So the mower's not going to fill his hand. The binder of sheaves is not going to fill his bosom with them. And it's just going to be withered, because that's what happens to them. This is the curse that's going to happen to them. They're the ones that are going to be bound up together and burned. They're the ones that are going to wither before they ever produce, because they're not in the way. They think they're in the way, but actually they're in their own way, and they're afflicting God's people. Therefore, a curse awaits them. I hope that you will join me again tomorrow as we conclude with the third curse there in verse 8, and that'll be here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.